I think Jaime will probably take Aragorn, especially if he was allowed to be armored. That's one thing I hit on several of these rural cage matches. Just to be clear, that's a quote from George R. R. Martin, not something I would say. Hey everyone, Yoyston here, and I hope you all are doing well wherever you are in Middle-earth or Westeros. As a big fan of George R. R. Martin and his works on A Song of Ice and Fire and so forth, but also as someone who just, loves Middle-earth and Tolkien's Legendarium and obviously runs a channel on such, I figured I saw this meme, I guess, one too many times on the internet, so I guess I'll address it in a video finally. And that is that Jaime Lannister could take Aragorn in a fight. Now, I know there are other videos that have been made, and again, this is kind of an old meme, but I think the reason it keeps coming back is because George R. R. Martin actually thinks Jaime Lannister would win. And so I'm here to not even really, I do a versus series between characters in Tolkien's world, but this isn't close enough to even do something like that. Rather, I'm going to kind of have some fun with this video, and I hope you all join me for that. Nothing but love, no hate, all love to George R. R. Martin, but he's wrong here. We're going to go through the different arguments, kind of like I did for a Feanor Did Nothing Wrong video a while back. I'm going to go through as many arguments as I can find, and then use AI to make the strongest argument, I guess, as to why Jaime Lannister could beat Aragorn. Because honestly, we all are kind of in agreement here, most of us, in that Aragorn would win. But now let's break down why, and let's break down why George R. R. Martin is wrong here. So the claim is that George R. R. Martin thinks Jaime Lannister, one of the main characters in A Song of Ice and Fire, a great swordsman, absolutely, with both hands and armor, could beat Aragorn. Now, even according to Carmine from Red Team Review, who is a friend of the channel and a Game of Thrones YouTuber, he says, I quote, Aragorn would annihilate Jaime. I said, fair. And he said, anyone who would debate this on Jaime's side has no idea what they're on about. Asked him if I could use that quote for this video, and he agreed. So I'm starting there. Even a Game of Thrones YouTuber, somebody who covers a lot of A Song of Ice and Fire, says Jaime, there's no way Jaime could win. So yeah, let's just have some fun, break this down using some lore from Middle-earth and my limited lore knowledge of A Song of Ice and Fire. Thank you all for joining me today. Let's get into it and have some fun. All right, so again, most people agree on this, to be honest. And it's not even close, but I will steelman this argument as best as I can. This will be a very long video and a conversation, debate. We're going to be looking some stuff up and just having fun with it. Let me know if you like this style of videos, despite all my uhs and ums and stutters and stuff. But yeah, just kind of more of a conversation, less of a heavily edited or a lot of visuals, stuff like that. Let me know if you'd like to see more of these. I have a blast with them. But also, let me know if this is the worst thing you've ever seen. Yoyston, never make a video like this again. This was terrible. Just let me know any of that, your thoughts, any other debates you'd like to see. And I appreciate you trying this. So really fast, I want to start this off by actually kind of correcting George here. Now, again, he's probably talking, I guess I don't really know if he's talking movie Aragorn versus TV show Jaime, or if he's talking book to book. I'm going to address this mostly using book to book, but honestly, from what I can tell, the movie versions would be maybe a little closer, but pretty much the same. He says that Aragorn doesn't wear armor. And that's partially correct, but we're talking about them both at their strongest points, right? That's kind of how this question was phrased. Jaime and Aragorn at their strongest points. So Aragorn would absolutely use armor, and we see that in the books, and even in the movies, at the end of The Return of the King, he's in that Gondorian armor, whether he's being crowned as king or even fighting at the Black Gate, he's in armor. Maybe not a helmet per se, but he can and does use armor. We see that he has elven chainmail on when he's at Rivendell in the book. And so that, plus the fact, I consider Anduril, because that is reforged from Narsil, which is a first-age weapon forged by the dwarf Telkar, right? It's reforged using the skill of the elves, but also Anduril has the sheath from Galadriel that makes sure it could never break. Anduril, we cannot underestimate that sword. It is incredible. So, for that alone, Anduril might even be able to break any steel from King's Landing, right? From the Kingsguard stuff that Jaime might wield. So that alone, like, if we're taking them both at their strongest, so that would be Aragorn during the time of The Lord of the Rings, and Jaime Lannister probably a few years before the main events of Game of Thrones, because according to what I've found, in the beginning of Game of Thrones, he's about 36 years old, and then he loses his hand, and it's not even close between him and Aragorn then. Aragorn would win every fight, but we're talking two-handed Jaime at the height of his swordsmanship, so he's probably in his 20s, so some years before Game of Thrones, the events of the first book, right? So if we're taking them at that, let's go through it. All right, so now let's go through, especially the AI arguments. From what I can tell, what most people say is that just the fact of like armor versus not armor. Let's take a look at that, because Aragorn in the movies, if we're assuming like that version, he does fight and kill armored opponents. Look at Lurtz, right? Look at the enemies on the Pelennor fields. We could even say that the troll at the Battle of the Black Gate that he fights by himself. I mean, he does fight armored and bigger. Like, granted, he was losing to that troll, but being able to fight and take on such a beast is quite amazing. But you even have like the Nazgul in both the books and the movies. In the books, he's definitely able to drive off the Nazgul more than like beat them, but in the movies, he's able to like beat the Nazgul pretty handily by himself on Weathertop. In the books, it's more like he kind of drives them off. It's not as martial of a fight there. So people kind of saying, George R. R. Martin saying that armor makes such a huge difference. I don't think so, because again, we're taking a look at like Jaime in his 20s. Aragorn is in his late 80s, and he's of Númenórean lineage. He's also 6'6". Let me look really fast at Jaime's height here. Jaime's height, Game of Thrones, because that is something we should remember too. So okay, 6'2" in the show. Yeah, he seems to be a couple inch. So Jaime seems to be over 6 feet tall, but not as tall as Aragorn, who's, again, from what I can tell, about 6'6". So Aragorn also has height on Jaime and mobility, because he's used to moving faster in this not this Kingsguard armor. I think Aragorn, even with the armor, like, he's beating Jaime, because you look at their sword qualities, and even if you give Jaime like a Valyrian steel weapon, which he gets later, but he doesn't have both hands when he gets it. Even if you give him that sword like earlier, while he's in his strongest moment, I don't think it breaks Andúril. At least I think they match each other, but Andúril versus a normal steel sword, like, it's just not close. So there's that. Okay, honestly, I'm even struggling to find good arguments for Jaime, because again, most people agree Aragorn wins this. So I'm going to use AI now, ChatGPT, to try to come up with a why Jaime would beat Aragorn argument. And I really had to push it just to get the strongest argument. Let's go through and let's break this down. All right. First, Jaime is a specialist in sword dueling. Aragorn is not. First off, I disagree with that premise. Like, Aragorn, he doesn't use any other weapons really that we know of. In the movies, you could say, yeah, he used like a bow a little bit, but he's a swordsman, so I disagree with that premise, first off, but let's keep going. Jaime is a purebred killer in one-on-one sword play, trained from youth to be the finest knight of his era. His entire combat identity is wrapped around being a duelist. Aragorn is a generalist. He's a tracker, survivalist, battlefield leader, guerrilla fighter. He excels in mixed terrain and against inferior enemies, not formal, high-level single combat. So, totally disagree with this. Jaime, yes, he's a duelist. He spars, right? They go to tourneys, and he does do these things. But also, he's like a very elite, high-end, like, wealthy individual within A Song of Ice and Fire. Aragorn fights real enemies. He fights orcs and Uruk-hai, and he fights Nazgul at Weathertop, and let's look into his lore as Thorongil. He goes to Rohan and helps them against their enemies. He goes to Gondor and helps them push back the Corsairs of Umbar. Yeah, taking down the ships of the Corsairs and beating them, even when he was younger than we're talking about here, is absolutely wild, right? That is insanely strong. I mean, think about it this way, too. When the hobbits, Merry and Pippin, were captured by Uruks and Orcs and they were being taken to Isengard, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli were planning to ambush those Orcs and get their two friends back. They were vastly outnumbered. I'm sure they would have tried to use, like, stealth and so forth, but vastly outnumbered. And they were like, yeah, we got this. Shows something to have that sort of confidence. But yeah, Jaime, again, like, sure, I don't really recall him beating super, like, good warriors himself. You know, I'm sure, like, a few, but again, I'm not as familiar with the lore itself. I guess I'll even look that up. Who does Jaime best in combat? Because, like, if we look at Eddard Stark, he was older when he beat him, and also he, like, had his men surround Eddard and all this kind of stuff in Game of Thrones. But it's not like a Barristan Selmy that he takes out. It's not like an Arthur Dane that he takes down. Like, like, I'll be honest. Yeah, he's not really beating a ton of named people either, right? Again, Aragorn, like, it's not like, oh, Aragorn fights the Witch King one-on-one and he beats him or anything like that, but I'm rejecting this. Aragorn is a specialist in sword dueling, and he's been at it a lot longer than Jaime has. He's again, 89 years old, but of Númenórean lineage, so he's quite young and quick-paced and good at fighting still. We see that in Moria when he's able to take out that orc captain in Balin's tomb. Jaime, he doesn't have that sort of realistic swordplay experience. All right. Jaime, the next argument here is that Jaime's raw talent eclipses nearly anyone in Westeros or Middle-earth. Okay. Raw talent. Granted, he is, like, this is a big part of his character. He just has that raw talent that becomes skill. He's compared only to legends like Sir Arthur Dane, who wielded Dawn, a sword compared to Valyrian steel, and Barristan Selmy, who himself calls Jaime exceptional. He becomes a member of the Kingsguard at age 15, the youngest in history. It's like being knighted into the NBA as a teenager. No warrior in Aragorn's world, outside of maybe Glorfindel or Fingolfin-era elves, is described with such consistent awe for pure swordsmanship. Okay. Again, all fun here, but Fingolfin being compared to anybody in Westeros is insane. Fingolfin dueled one-on-one with Morgoth, the Dark Lord, and he wounded him 7 times. It's not even close. Fingolfin would... Okay, Aragorn versus Jaime is insane. Fingolfin versus, like... oh my gosh, my mind broke. That is such a bad argument. Like, it's not even on the same level. Fingolfin could have taken Sauron down, right, I think, in one-on-one combat, or at least it would have been very close. What are we even talking about here? So, okay, yes, let's get back to the premise. Jaime does have natural talent. Absolutely. No one's arguing that. I would imagine the Númenóreans and their descendants did too, though, right? Aragorn doesn't go off into the wilds until he's 20, so yes, older than Jaime. And if we're taking them at, like, young points, 15-year-old Jaime versus 15-year-old Aragorn, okay, that's different. I would probably say Jaime wins that one. Because Aragorn hasn't had to really fight, he's just been raised in Rivendell at that point. But if we're talking about them at their best, yeah, Aragorn is extremely talented. He's got raw power within him. He's got the ancestry of elves and Maiar, right? Malian the Maya. Like, it's not, yeah, just their inherent abilities. I would still say Aragorn definitely comes out on top then, because he has a bloodline that is the Númenórean kings. The very same Númenóreans that took down Sauron, Elendil, Isildur, Anarion, and even further back beyond that, going all the way back to the first Númenóreans. That's not even close. If we're talking about inherent talent and ability. Jaime's good, and I think Jaime could, like, block a couple of Aragorn's strikes and so forth, but I don't think the fight would last even a minute, to be honest. I don't think it would last 60 seconds. I think Aragorn would take him out before then. All right, the next premise, or the next claim. Jaime wears full plate armor, Aragorn doesn't. Jaime's Kingsguard plate armor is state-of-the-art, covering his entire body in master-crafted steel-layered overmail and padding. Aragorn typically wears light chainmail, leather, or partial plate, prioritizing stealth and mobility. That's great against orcs, but not against a knight bred to fight in armor. Okay, this is actually a better argument, and this is the one that George makes, really. But as I said before, Aragorn fights armored opponents, and he wins, like, all the time. He's able to, again, there's a way to fight armored opponents. It'll be tougher, for sure. And I don't know if Anduril could even maybe break through some of that armor based on how strong it is. But even assuming it can't, Aragorn would probably be fast enough and mobile enough. Sure, there's more risk if he gets hit versus if Jaime gets hit. But he would be mobile enough to be able to use the armor against Jaime, I would imagine, right? Like, plate armor is very tough to be super mobile in compared to this lighter armor. At least the Kingsguard armor, from what I can tell. So, yeah, I still think, again, better argument, but Aragorn could use that mobility to take him down, I think. And the strength of his sword and all of that. He could wear him down, break armor pieces off, and that would be that. Okay, again, to make the strongest available argument, I was like, what if Jaime even had a Valyrian steel sword, which is like the best kind of sword you can have in Westeros? Hey, I said, ChatGPT here says it outclasses Aragorn's Narsil. Again, I doubt that, because you have a first stage weapon, a legendary weapon that was, yes, broken by Sauron, but reforged by the Elves, and never could break, based on Galadriel's sheath here. So, yes, sharper. The Valyrian steel is like maybe sharper and magical in all of this kind of way, and it's kind of like having a sword made out of mithril, honestly. But it would be close. I think it's tough to compare weapons. Like, again, how would a lightsaber do against a magical sword that couldn't break? Like, who knows, right? Who knows for sure? If we're bringing in that Star Wars comparison. But I think they're probably about equal. Valyrian steel versus Dwarven steel from the First Age that was reforged and helped beat Sauron and cut Sauron's finger. Like, all right, I'm not going to engage too much with this one because the power scaling is insanely tough. So maybe if Jaime had one, maybe that would help him a ton. Okay, number 5 here. Jaime is cold, pragmatic, and unbound by honor. Jaime fights to win, not to impress. Aragorn fights with restraint, humility, and righteousness that would get him killed in a lethal duel. Jaime would kick the knee, bash the head, slice the hand, spit blood, and laugh in your face. He doesn't monologue, he doesn't hesitate, he fights. Even if Aragorn lands a hit, Jaime has the armor, speed, and mentality to keep pressing it and end it. Okay, the unbound by honor thing. Again, Aragorn is honorable, but he's used to fighting orcs and Uruk-hai, where he doesn't necessarily have to be. And if we're talking about movie version of Aragorn, I want you to count how many times the next time you watch the movies, how many times Aragorn decapitates orcs. Like, it happens a lot, actually. Like, he's ruthless in combat. So if he approached Jaime with that same sense of fight, right, it's me or him, it's I have to stay alive for Arnor and Gondor and all of this kind of stuff. Like, he has a reason to live. He has to stay alive for Arwen to preserve the line of kings. And Jaime's just Jaime. Has to stay alive for Cersei, I guess. Like, I don't buy that. I think Aragorn would fight with the same, if not more, ferocity. Sure, he's bound by honor, but I don't think that's an issue. I think Aragorn would spare Jaime, but there we go. Okay. We're getting on towards the final few claims here, but let's keep going. Aragorn has fought many enemies, but not many equals. He defeats orcs, trolls, and dark men, none of whom are trained duelists. It's about to take the movie version here. His equal battles are rare. Lurtz, a berserker, Mouth of Sauron, easily killed, or the Witch King, who he never actually fights. He's often the strongest man. No, he does fight him on Weathertop. Again, AI, right? He's often the strongest man in the room and rarely challenged in fair combat. Jaime, on the other hand, frequently duels other elite swordsmen. Brienne, who beats the Hound, Ned Stark, and others. He's forged in elite competition. Okay, so I think this is entirely wrong. You can flip this on its head almost entirely. Jaime rarely fights in a way that, like, yes, tourneys and stuff, that helps in a duelist perspective, but fighting to survive, fighting to win, as Aragorn does on the battlefield versus Jaime rarely does, and rarely wins that, it's not nearly, like, the same. Sure, maybe a lot of Aragorn's opponents that he defeats are weaker than some of Jaime's opponents, but again, it's lethality versus fighting in a tourney or something like that. So, and I would also flip this on its head. Sure, Jaime killed the Mad King, but he stabbed it. Like, he betrayed him. It wasn't like this crazy duel. If he had fought and killed Rhaegar Targaryen, for instance, that might be more worthy of, like, Okay, all right, that, we can give him props for that. But no, I don't know. I don't necessarily think so. And again, maybe Jaime could have beat Robert Baratheon, like, who knows, but again, this against Aragorn. Aragorn taking down Uruk-hai. He doesn't kill the Mouth of Sauron. Lurtz isn't a character in the books. He doesn't kill the Mouth of Sauron in the books. And yeah, he never duels the Witch King. But again, he's on par with something like the Witch King, I would say. Just because the Númenórean heritage, he's lived a long time and has fought in many battles and so forth. But he fights real battles. Jaime fights a lot of fake battles. All right, next one. Jaime was born, bred, and trained for this exact fight. Lannister money got him the best weapons, armor, horses, squires, and trainers. He trained every day for over 20 years with the best swordsmen in Westeros. He became so dominant that people avoided duels entirely. He was feared in melee. He doesn't have to adapt to the duel. He lives for it. Okay, good point. He is a duelist, and yeah. But again, almost quadruple that experience. Okay, triple that experience. Because again, Aragorn didn't really leave Rivendell till he was 20. Triple that experience and make it real, that's Aragorn. He's in the field, the battlefield, taking down enemies amongst the Corsairs, Orcs, Uruk-hai, probably Black Númenóreans, Nazgûl. He tracks, he hunts, he's absolutely more of a warrior in every sense of the word. All right, next one. Speed, aggression, and initiative. Jaime wins the first exchange. I don't know where it gets this. Like, Aragorn is a counter-striker is what it says, and Jaime is based on speed, aggression. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all. Like, Aragorn can be aggressive, but he can also be a counter-striker for sure. I'm not going to go really through that one. We don't know enough about how they fight in both the books and the movies to really know that for sure. But Aragorn has different sword styles. He fights different kinds of warriors. He knows how to adapt in just a way that I don't think Jaime really does, because Jaime's so much younger and Jaime always fights knights, right? And armored warriors, at least a lot of the time. And so, but Aragorn is much more used to a multitude of fighting styles. Finally, the last claim isn't really a claim, but the duel isn't about who's nobler, it's about who wins. Aragorn is noble, honorable, and selfless, but that's irrelevant in a lethal fight. Jaime is faster, better equipped, mentally ruthless, and sword-forged. If Aragorn hesitates, looks for mercy, or lets Jaime up, Jaime ends it. Again, I don't think so. If Aragorn knows the type of fight this is, and that it's him or Jaime, like, Aragorn's also killed evil men, too. So I don't think this is particularly close. I mean, it's the master versus, like, yes, somebody with a lot of raw talent, but not, he just wouldn't compute the ways that I think Aragorn could fight. And there's a reason that Aragorn survives so many combat encounters and has lived for so long, and all of that kind of stuff is one of, if not like the most respected warrior among men of the Third Age of Middle-earth. So, and it's funny too. So, putting all that aside again, because that's kind of the point of this video, is to just have a fun little debate here. Putting all that aside, I told AI, right? I told ChatGPT, all right, who actually wins this? Like, put down the guard that I asked you to bring up with Jaime. Who actually wins this? It's like, oh yeah, no, Aragorn wins this like 9 out of 10 times, and here's why. So even AI knows, right? Even AI knows that Aragorn absolutely wins this. It put up some good-ish points. Again, they're not always rooted in lore or in movie. I wanted to originally approach this more with book lore, but again, I mean, both book or movie. Sure, movie Aragorn and TV Jaime are closer, but I think book Aragorn and book Jaime are, again, leagues apart. So, yeah. But again, that's kind of my take on this funny debate, and I'm sure I'll keep seeing the memes of it. But I think it's a prominent online meme simply because George R. R. Martin actually thought Jaime could win. If he was just defending his brand, just trying to talk up a Song of Ice and Fire compared to Lord of the Rings, I get it. I get it, but it's not true though. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this. Very different kind of video than what we normally do here. even amongst our versus videos. But yeah, way less editing, just more kind of a fun dialogue. Let me know if you guys want to see more like this, more debates going through people's arguments about misconceptions with Tolkien and all of that. Again, Royan and I just did a misconceptions podcast on Patreon and YouTube memberships, talking about people's misconceptions with Tolkien and so forth. So check that out if you're interested for more of these kinds of topics. And yeah, if you'd like to support the channel, please consider getting some candles from Mythology Candles through the link below. Use the code Men of the West for 10% off that first order, or check out CastleCon's Lord of the Rings replicas and use the code WEST at checkout, and please check out our merch. Again, our memberships and Patreon are the best way to help the channel, and you have access to our Discord server and our monthly podcast. Take a look at our second channel, Masters of Mythology, and thanks to our Valar tier patrons and YouTube members, Joby Weasel, Ed Patterson, Comic Nut 64, Zoomi, Peter Sheppard. Thank you all so much. Don't forget to subscribe to join the Men of the West, and my friends, thank you all for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one.